and strategic partners and education ecosystem partners. And I want you to speak to this vision that we have at Ashoka of everyone a change maker. So in the context of redefining this education experience for children and young people, how can we cultivate a common vision around this idea? There's a strategic partnership, so how do we cultivate this common vision?
Yes, as we've been talking about throughout the day, it's this ecosystem that seems to be the winning combination. We've heard from Nova. My children have been to Montessori schools, and so every one of those type scenarios, there seems to be a community that's surrounding the institution and the child, and that seems to be the thing that makes it work. So in looking at a solution, a holistic learning solution for Africa, it needs to include many of the people that care the most about young people in that community. Yeah. So that's kind of how we are looking at, bringing everybody into the discussion, and so that they can play an active role in the education of the young person.
Yeah, and when you speak of everyone, and I'll bring Ashoka Fellow Aaron Mashira into this conversation, could you please just sort of peel that onion and help us understand who is this that we're calling everyone?
Sure. So it's not just the teacher. Although the teacher is very important, the teacher is what we consider the change maker. So they do need to understand the role that they have. But it's also the administrators, it's the principal. Yeah. Because if you don't have buy-in from the top, then whatever programming the teacher is planning or trying to do, they don't have the forum, they don't have the space, they don't even have the time to do it. So it's important to include them. It's important to include the bus drivers, the janitors at the school, the lunchroom administration. Everybody needs to be a part, and then it needs to be spread out so we're working with unions. Yeah. The Nigerian Union of Teachers in Nigeria, they're important, as well as Teach for Nigeria. So there are many partners that are wanting to participate in the transformation of the educational system. Yeah. So quite frankly, when I say everyone, I mean everyone that is interested in playing a role, because we believe that collectively, I was just having lunch with Ian and Kimati. We were talking about how we have to share ideas, and we shouldn't feel so competitive and that somebody has an idea and therefore I don't want to share it and collaborate, because this is such a massive problem. Yeah. It's such a massive issue, and we need all of these people on at the panel as well as in the audience to work together.
I love that. And thank you for just sort of breaking it down so that the audience can see that we all play a role in this game. And Aaron, as you address that, allow me just to build on that question, because I want you to also speak on building this common vision. It requires collaboration, and as an Ashoka Fellow, with Akili Group, you've demonstrated this, being able to collaborate with different stakeholders. So my question is, as you're doing this, and as reflecting to what Angelo has just said, it's how can educators, parents, policymakers, community members work together to establish this shared vision of empathy and change making in the growing up and education experiences?
Thank you. First of all, as I think the oldest person here, I am allowed to tell stories. And I'll explain this from the point of view of something that we are doing in one of the counties called Nyeri. It's a county in Kenya, and where we have a program that affects an entire community. The schools are involved. I addressed a school in Karatina, and it was a biology class. And none of those kids in the biology class in Form 3 understood what hydroponics is. They did not understand what aeroponics is. I asked them, what are you doing for your agricultural demonstrations? Yeah. And they said they are digging a farm outside the school where they grow sukuma wiki. And how many of you would like to do that when you finish school? And all of them say, oh, no, 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 no. Yeah. They would never want to do agriculture. So I gave them a lecture on what a hydroponics farm is, and I used potatoes as an illustration. Yeah. You have potatoes growing up here, and the roots are down there, and you have an automated system for feeding nutrients every 30 minutes using a pumping system, but where all the nutrients are mixed in one particular place, and you analyze the nutrients in a lab, and you bring the result over there. And I asked them how many would like to be that sort of agriculturalist. All of them said yes. You understand? Yeah. So when we talk about everyone in that community, if we are dealing with just the potato value chain, which can increase food production there by more than 10 times, by enlisting the youth through current technologies, all of a sudden agriculture stops looking like a very ugly job that you do only if you are totally the last guy in the class, and now becomes the most sensational career that you can have in that community. Now, when the principal heard me talk on this particular subject, the principal began to organize other sessions for us to get involved with the school, because as you people have the knowledge. Yeah. So we are already collaborating with that school, but at the community level, the mothers who are bringing up children are feeding children one type of meal every day that is eaten in the rural areas. And that meal is ugali na sukuma. Ugali na sukuma. Ugali na sukuma. What sort of children are you going to bring up? Undeveloped brains, incapacity in thinking. And so an education system at the community level on what nutrients, that's what one of my colleagues here does. She writes articles that are fed into the community on nutrition and what different things are doing, and you begin to change the habits, eating habits at the community level, so that even the children who are growing in that community now have got better brains, better development, and they are eating well, and they are healthy, and they are vibrant in class, they are not dozing, etc. And I can go on and on in this, but the worst thing is the fact that many of those ladies themselves are sick, and they don't even know it. Now, we have a collaboration with the Kijabe Hospital in that community, in which we are training young women to sensitize women in the community on cervical cancer treatment, and some 2 young men to sensitize men on prostate cancer treatment. And in every one of those cases, when cervical cancer is detected before it goes to stage 1, that woman's survival is 100% guaranteed. If it's not detected, which is most of the cases, then the chances of death are also guaranteed 100%. Now, we have collaborated with a local privately owned clinic to empower the clinic to do the testings, but using carbon credit money that from the offsets that are generated in the community to finance, so that everybody who goes to that clinic belonging to our project, therefore get that treatment for free. Yeah. You have seen many components: the carbon credits, the offsets, the teachers, the schools, the universities, the medical health institutions, all of us working together to solve the problems in one community. So Achilles' model is to actually enter into a community and mobilize everyone around all the problems that are identified in that community long-term to deal with them. Fortunately for us, carbon credit programs are long-term. You know, a tree-based carbon credit program is 30 years. Cook stove, energy-efficient cook stove project is 10 years. So you have time to have people there every day dealing with those problems and addressing them in a sustainable way, but transforming that community into a totally new entity. Yeah. Everybody has to work together.
Yep.
Yes.
And I really like that. And again, it comes up, right, that everyone here is you and I. The ability or the knowledge or experience that we have is essential, or can play a very, very key role in shifting the mindsets, as you've said, you know, stepping in that classroom environment and helping the young person understand a different perspective to agriculture and shifting their mindset on that. And Jennifer, I just want to bring you on board, you know, because I know that you work with Changemakers, right? And I really want to understand, can you share with us, examples of initiatives or programs that have successfully empowered children and young people to become change makers in their communities? What are the key elements that made this initiative effective in promoting empathy and change making?
Yes, you said Jennifer.
Jennifer,
Okay.
yeah, sorry. I was looking at...
Say Jennifer or Jennifer?
Sorry, I said Jennifer.
I'm Jennifer.
Oh, apologies for that. So the question was directed to you.
Okay. So for me, change making starts at the household level when the child is young. Okay, it starts on how, from the age of 0, the parent prepare their children. Do they prepare them with a solution mindset, a solutions giver? So, for me, I work with children 0 to 17, and what I've seen, children whose parents encourage them to be solution givers instead of complaining and seeing problems, they are told, let's get a solution. End up that's, for me, that is one of the family is the most successful institution when it comes to change makers. Okay, that's what you're saying.
Yes.
And this is bringing the child not to think about themselves, especially there's a generation of parents that their children are being brought very egocentric, like it's me, I, and myself, without thinking about others. I don't want to share bedroom with someone. So they don't start thinking about others. So when they don't start thinking about others, it's very difficult for this child to be taught how to be a problem solver, because they're so interested in getting, not giving. Okay, that's at a household level. So for me, as at Mtoto News, we are creating a generation, a movement of solution givers. Okay, and what we do, we empower children to be able to contribute to solutions at the household level, at the community level, at the national, regional, and international level. Okay, so we started by giving them a platform to speak, and they would speak, they would create content, and then they would go cover an event, and then they would come back to us, and they go like, Miss, we did that, but what is going to happen to those kids? What is going to happen to that community? So we started and asked, what do you want to do? And they say, okay, let's come up with a solution. And so we started teaching them on how to design thinking and the whole design thinking process and coming up with solutions. And 5 of those kids right now, they've gotten seed funding from an organization known as Kids Right. And this seed funding is to be able for them to scale up their projects. Okay, and then so for us, we have what we call Wish Hub, Watoto Innovation and Solutions Hub, where we incubate them because they don't have the capacity, they don't have they are not legal age, they are not 18 yet, and so we give them that incubation where we connect them. Like for example, we connect them with Kids Rights. Michael's here. Michael has just left. Michael, he runs the SDG Academy, so we connect them with SDG Academy. We connect them with like one of the kids that we work with now. He's working at the AU. We connect them to the AU. So how can we become the connectors? Okay, because we have empowered them to be solution givers. They have told us this is the solution. Like for example, I'll give Brian for example. Brian, I've worked with Brian since he was 13 years old. Okay, now he's the one who's working with the AU, and he's doing an amazing job. Okay, but he didn't have the capacity. He just got his ID a couple of weeks ago, and today he got his passport. He was so excited. He called me, I got my first passport, sir. He got his passport, and he got his passport because he's going to work at the AU. Okay, but we incubate them, we give them the skills, and they say, how do we register an organization? How do you keep your finance? How do you fundraise as young people? Okay, so they are here to give them that resource. Okay, so we're here to be able to provide them. And again, collaboration. We don't work alone. Okay, I've said we work with Michael. I don't know where he left. He's gone. Okay, we work with, like for example, Relly with Deborah and team. Okay, to be able to provide this platform for children to be able to speak, because most of the time we are coming up with solutions without our children. As much as calling them change makers, we don't give them the opportunities to make that change. Okay, we say, oh, change makers, but we don't give them that opportunity. We want to be able to determine and to be able to not delegate, to tell them what to do. We script them. This is the problem. Climate change is the problem right now. Let's all do climate change. And probably the child, climate change is not their problem. But because they're insisting climate change is the problem, they say, okay, but for them that's not a problem. Okay? Have you ever listened to children? That's why, like, for example, we have what we call the African Children Summit. We bring children, child-led, everything, and they come up with solutions. Okay? So for me, those are the platforms that we work with, and we work very closely with government. In fact, we're talking with Deb over lunch. The way sometimes is very bureaucratic, working with government. But we work with government as our collaborators. We work with other CSOs. For us, we're a social enterprise. So we work with CSOs. We work with other social enterprise to be able, how can we be able to work and to be able to create this movement of change makers? Okay, and my personal vision, everybody has, there's a company one, there's my personal one. I believe we're going to develop Africa by changing the way we bring up our children. If we can be able to start by our children, empowering them, changing their mindset, not to be problems, but solution-oriented, then we'll be able to make a difference. Thank you. I hope I've been able to answer your question.
Yes. Yes, please, a round of applause for that. That's a very powerful. Hapa ni kama sipati applause. Yes, and Jennifer, I really want to do you justice, because I noticed, as soon as you mentioned it, I noticed I was looking at Debs when I was asking that question, but you really answered the question that I was asking. But I want to also just circle back to you again, right? And ask you just to build up on the same point, because at Ashoka, practicing empathy is really important, and we're glad to have Angelou, Ashoka Fellow Angelou, and also the lead for empathy in Ashoka, be part of this conversation, right? And the question, part of the question was, and you've shared a number of examples, but could you also just share one concrete example of how you help your children practice this empathy, or even help the parents begin to understand how they can create an environment where their children can practice empathy, or even master these change maker skills?
I work online, okay? We work online, and online is the new playground for children. But unfortunately, most parents, and even us, we've not prepared our children to know that this is a playground. And when we're growing up, the same rules apply, okay? Yes. When you see someone hurt, help them, okay? Don't be mean. Okay, don't be. It applies, and that's something we teach our children. We have a five days training, and during that training we train them, and so they're the ones. So they already are aware of what putting themselves in the other person's shoe. Okay, I'm a social worker, so I know what empathy is. So they know how it feels. They know what are the negative implications of being bullied online, or being exposed to CSAM, child sexual abuse materials. They know how it feels like being trolled, okay, or being depressed. Okay, when you teach them, you have to teach them how it feels like and what it looks like. Okay, and then when they see someone else going through that, they know how to respond. Okay, they know how to respond to that. Okay, but you have to first to empower that child to be able. And I have had cases. I'll go back, because we work a lot online, where this young girl, she was in school, and then she said, and her friend came to her and said, hey, so and so has been asking me for my nudes, okay, to take photos of my nudes. So what did you ask her? What did you do? I said, Miss, I just went and I told her she needs to go report. And she reported, and that boy was given suspension. So the girl came back the following day, like, Miss, I'm feeling so bad because the boy was given suspension. It's all my fault. Because if I not have told her to report, that boy wouldn't have been suspended. So we went through the journey of what happens. What happens if that girl had sent the CSAM? Okay. Yeah. And then what happened? Now, do you feel bad? And they're like, no, thank you so much, Miss, because now I feel better. I did the right thing. Mm-hmm. So for us, is we teach children doing the right thing. It might not look the conventional way. Some people will not be happy with it, but empathetic means doing the right thing at the right time. Yeah. You may be saving a lot of lives. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that. Doing the right thing at the right time, you can save a lot of lives. Debs, and before I ask you this question, I will be now inviting you, the audience, to contribute at the midpoint of this, after Deb's response to my question, to engage our panelists also just to have your voices heard in this conversation. So please prepare yourself as we now engage Debs. And building up on what has been said, right? From Angelu's See Teach to Haron Washira engaging, the students to mastering or to appreciating a different approach in agriculture, and Jennifer, engaging a big group of young children to master or to practice empathy, right? And the various forms that she's engaging them with the collaborations, and also building on the conversation that happened earlier on collaborations, right? So my question is on that. So how can we ensure that we have this common vision of everyone as a change maker in an inclusive and accessible to children and young people from diverse backgrounds? I'm losing my question, sorry. Diverse backgrounds, including social, economic, and cultural barriers. What are the strategies and or initiatives that we can use to address this challenge? I know that you work with, a network of change makers within learning institutions. So maybe you can reflect on that and then, share with us your experience.
Sure. Thank you, Brian. So I think when I think about this question, I think about children who are left behind. And children can be left behind for a whole collection of reasons. It could be gender in some communities, it could be disability, it could be simply that they live in an urban informal settlement, and so they're left out of public provision for education. So our job both at Dignitas and at Relly is to think first about those children who are furthest behind, and how do we make sure that even as we talk about everyone being a change maker, we're not leaving them out of the conversation. And what we often kind of center our thinking on at Dignitas is that the most marginalized children also have the most marginalized teachers and the most marginalized school leaders. So the children who are kind of at the front of the line, at the top of the system, have the best teachers, have the best resources in their schools, typically have the best school leaders, and the opposite is true for the most marginalized. So how do we think about that most marginalized teacher and what they can do in their class day in, day out to ensure that every child has the opportunity to be a change maker? And it's interesting today that CBC has come up in conversation a couple of times. Like Joanne said, I'm not an agent of the government, but CBC on paper has a lot of really actually rich resource and science essentially to offer how we teach children. Now implementation is a conversation for another day, but on paper, CBC means we should be having teachers as facilitators instead of teachers as owners of all knowledge. And so when we make teachers facilitators and children are also participants in their own learning, then children have the opportunity to explore problems, to create solutions in ways that perhaps they hadn't done previously. And again, at the core of CBC is what in teaching teaching we call inquiry-based learning. Basically asking questions to learn. So how do we encourage children to ask questions when they see a problem, when they see an issue on their doorstep, in their classroom? How do they ask questions, and how does that become a moment in which to teach children, help them think about solutions, help them innovate, and help them become a change maker in that space? Again, CBC is all about learner autonomy. As a learner, I own this opportunity to learn. I can set my own goals, and I can achieve for myself during this time I have in school. And again, with teachers as facilitators of that. So our curriculum, I know it can be quite a controversial issue, but it actually has a lot in it that creates space and opportunity for our classrooms to become those spaces that nurture change makers. If you think about how many hours a week or a day children spend in school, it's probably the majority of the time that they're awake. And that's somebody in a day school. Boarding school is a whole other story. So they're in class with these teachers 6 to 8 hours of a day minimum. If those classrooms can be places where we really nurture this change-making mindset, where we nurture this inquiry-based mindset, where children are able to answer questions, where teachers don't feel the pressure to have all the answers, but it becomes something they explore together, then teachers and learners can collaborate to actually begin to brainstorm and innovate some of these solutions. So equipping our teachers for that is as important as preparing the classroom as kind of fertile ground for that to happen. And sadly, many of our teachers don't get that support. So supporting the education workforce, including teachers, so that classrooms become these kind of fertile grounds for change making is really core to how we move forward.
Really, really powerful. I would like to invite anyone who has a question so far before we continue with our panel. Yes. Could I kindly have the Ashoka team assist?
Thank you. I really want to appreciate the Ashoka team for this wonderful day, a beautiful moment, and a very good baraza. Great networking and a lot of learning. As I said, we work with the children from the age of 3 up to 18 for those who are in school. And my concern goes to the last conversation. How do we ensure that we don't leave some children behind? I'm so concerned with the children who are still in the 844 system, that is class 8 currently, from 1 to form 4. And my concern, it's even a sad one, because in the last 2 weeks, I've had 2 students, a form 3 and a form 2, ran out of school, top performing school, national schools. The girl jumped out of the fence and the boy ran away on Sunday through the fence. And these are children who have been raised well, leaders, but the reason is we can't take the pressure in the school. We wake up at 3 a.m., the homeworks are too much, we don't even have time to clean our clothes. They're in national schools, there's too much homework. So my sadness is that these are kids who were leaders in primary school, though in a private school, and you could see their leadership skills, you could see their capabilities. And now I interacted with one on Sunday, and I'm like, how could you do this? No, I can't take it. So what do you want? I would rather even leave school. And it really saddened me, and that is just 1 or 2. And I imagine majority in that bracket. I'm not saying that CBC has sorted that entirely, but I don't know how this team of I don't know how we can sort that. Yeah, and one is a very close relative. So I'm really sad, and we don't even know what to do with him now. Yeah.
Yes, something to this, and then because from a community point of view, we experience this last mile. We are not dealing with teachers. We are not dealing with the decision makers in education. But those kids are in those communities. Now, I was chairman of 2 high schools at the same time, by the way, one a top-end high school and one a low-end high school in there. And I saw a very interesting phenomenon. We were trying to make life easier for children, bring the fees lower for children, but the biggest pushback for us actually came from the parents, because the parents themselves want to leave education to the teachers, and they don't want to be involved. So any activity that, for example, requires children to go and spend a lot more time at home without having to come back to the school for tuition and all of that, the parents would rather pay but not have the children. So I think a major change is required at the parents' levels to engage the school, because if even today, those kids who are still in 844, the parents in a properly organized, properly trained environment can actually confront the school, because there are very many things you can do to the 844 system to actually make it easier for the children who are already there not to have to be overloaded with work. But if the parents are pushing the teachers that way, and the teachers are creating opportunities to make money from all this tuition that goes on, and keeping children in school from like 5 a.m. in the morning all the way for primary level to night, and then it's crazy. So why do we accept it? So I think as we deal with change making, we need also to be engaging the parents so that they can become the pressure point for getting the schools to come up with a program that makes it possible. Now, to make it easier. In that school, when I was chairman of those 2 schools because it's generally in the same area, I created a system of exchanges between the students. And initially there was an initial pushback not from the parents this time, but from the teachers in the upper end school, because they did not want their high end students to mix up with the low end students, that sort of thing. But we had a good organization. We managed to get kids from the lower end school to come and stay 2 weeks in this other school, and then go back and become tutors of tutors. And that school that had never taken kids to university, a high school, began to suddenly aspire to want to go to university. And by the time when I was leaving, when I joined, the entire class had E score grade at Form 4. 5 years later, we took 12 girls to the university from that same school. So I think people have to engage, and parents have to be at the core of this, working with all the other stakeholders. In that particular area, I think the experts can speak more to it, but I think personally I would like to see more engagement at the parental level.
Would you like to contribute?
Bwana Harun has said it better than, but I think you're right. I think they are a group that have sadly been kind of forgotten, because everybody is focusing on CBC, and even anything that's being done for teachers, for schools, is focused on CBC, and that group is kind of forgotten. But I agree with you. I think we have, in many ways, a parenting crisis, and I think I see it even with my fellow parents at my own kids' school. Everybody sits and complains like this, and then when it comes time to go and have a conversation with the school, nobody wants to be there. So how do we as parents invest ourselves in what's happening to our children in school and be able to respond to that collectively, which I agree is not easy, but to be able to advocate for our children, because at the end of the day, they're minors, and even as we do that, we're modeling for them change making. But yeah.
And if I could just add to that, change is hard. Change is really, really hard. And I think that a lot of us in the room, the success metrics for us growing up was that we went to school, we just stayed in the box, we studied something, we graduated, we got a job doing that thing, and then, at the end, at least our parents or that generation got to go watch, but what we need to do now is work with young people to redefine what success looks like. And that's really, really hard because we really don't know. That's why these types of convenings are important. It's like a think tank, in which we're sharing ideas and talking to experts and people that have experience, but no one really knows the answer. But that's why we need the collective. That's why we know that what we do know is that it can't be this monolithic way of addressing the issue. It needs a holistic approach, I believe. That's a question.
Thank you, panelists, for that response. Yes, please.
Yeah, thank you very much. My name is Dr. Engineer Jas Kalomba from Juakali. Of course, I'm a member of Kenya Diaspora Alliance. Thank you, Ashoka, because of the question that the answers that you've given to us, and I've now known what Ashoka is all about. You've talked about hydroponics. One of the things that is letting this country down when in terms of production, we know very well this is an agriculture backbone country, but we do subsistence agriculture. So you plant and eat. But in Asia, I happen to be a product of India, 7 years and 4 years in China. It is not subsistence. So if you have a quarter an acre, it must be commercial agriculture.
Yes.
This is a country where if you offer 1 million for somebody to bring you 10 earthworms, you will go back with your 1 million. Whereas on the onset of creation, earthworm is supposed to help the soils. So we are busy putting fertilizers in the soil that are already fertile, but they are lacking aeration because of lack of earthworms. Just our neighbors across the country, they have an emerging livestock called senene, is a grasshopper. Kenya has the best environment for farming grasshoppers.
Yes.
Our neighbors across the oceans, they are eating cockroach. Cockroach is our menace, and we are buying pesticides to kill them. Whereas those who sell pesticides to us, they eat them.
Yes.
Now, we need to look at it like this. Even when locusts go to Kenya, it is God sending food because Chinese are looking for them. And even Kenyans eat locusts. And I was just wondering, even if God was to punish Chinese with mice, rats, what would they say? They would kneel down and lift their hands and say, thank you, God, you have brought food. Yeah. When you brought to Egypt, they were crying. So what I'm saying is this, agriculture is good. We used to have a 4K club. You remember your age?
Yes.
We were in that class of 4K club.
I used to keep rabbits.
Yes, correct. Now, the youth of today, if you tell them about the cost of rabbit's urine in some market, you know where I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I have an order in South Africa to supply human urine for extraction of urea.
Yeah.
I'm really looking for human urine. If I wanted 30 liters per hour in this room, I'll get it.
Yeah, you can
but
get
then the mechanism of handling that and the political goodwill around it to boost agriculture is what we need to think through and say, yes, we have cockroach. Our chicken are looking for cockroach. We are buying chicken feed from other markets when cockroach is chasing us. So I think the agenda, I was consulted with Jomo Kenyatta University, and we did banana tissue culture. You know it.
Yes.
Now we need to throw you back to a question to you. Where is the component of agribusiness? Because agriculture is agri and culture.
Business.
It is two words in one. Sure. Agri and culture. So when you sell banana in the market and you've sold not banana wine, you have erred. When you sell banana stem or give to your cows, you have only give them juice because there is a lot of juice in the stem and there is a lot of fiber which our ladies are beautiful with, thinking is human hair, whereas it's banana fiber. So we need to get the mix from Ashoka and see then how do we support our youth to be able to engage in agri business in extraction. Thank you very much.
First of all, congratulations for a great question. And you are spot on. The answer that I would like to give to the group here is that we make a mistake by thinking of starting things very big. Because when you come up with a conceptual idea of something that is so massive, people get intimidated.
Yes.
Yeah, in one of our centers, I left a girl, a 30-year-old girl who has recently become a manager of one of our centers, and I told her I would like to produce a post, a fencing post from the waste plastics that is all around here. That's all the instruction I gave. And I told her, in general, a 30% high density plastic with a 70% high density and a 30% low density plastic, and I showed her examples of a low density plastic and high density plastic would produce a post if you heated and managed to mold this. I went away. I've been in Nairobi for almost a whole week. Yesterday I got a picture of the first post that has been made. They crafted a heating unit, made a funnel out of it, created a mechanism for absorbing that liquid, but the post came out with a crack. And I asked her on WhatsApp, this is a young woman, why do you think it cracked? And she says, I think they never used the ratios that you gave. And I said, what ratios did they use? And she said, they never used the ratios, they just mixed things. I said, so now what's the way out? And she says, I'll make sure they use the ratios. Do you understand? These are young people thinking together and coming up with a solution that if they can produce that plastic post, I can be able to invest in improving the technology, the mechanisms for producing it, because plastic posts also get carbon credits. The processing of conversion of plastic into a stable carbon form would generate carbon credit. Are you with me? On the agribusiness program, we are working with farmers who are growing moringa oleifera, the most nutritious vegetable. Well, chaya is like on the same level. With chaya and moringa, very nutritious. But how do we get it to the market? Dried form, and then make a capsule out of it, then sell it online. Do you understand? Solutions that are complete. So here's my suggestion. Any idea that transforms agriculture, that integrates science and technology and knowledge and the young people in it needs to be tried in a very small scale. Because Kenyans know how to copy, by the way. We don't know how to initiate many things, but we really, if you start a kiosk there, and I think you are making money out of selling eggs, in another week there will be 10 kiosks selling eggs. So why don't we create those demonstrations of what works? A greenhouse that is producing potato seed, backed by research in the background, but which can be multiplied by many young people who want also to make $1 million shillings from that. And that's what the business I'm involved in. So we innovate a newer idea, we reduce it to something very, very small, we demonstrate it either on a farm or in a center, and let people copy. And people have asked me over and over and over again, why don't you patent your ideas? I want my ideas to be copied. Yeah, so I design to be copied.
Yes.
Because that demonstration is what will transform agriculture to the level where now the majority of people will lift this country out of the problem of not eating and even wanting to eat. I had a girl who told me they eat cockroaches, and I was telling her whether she can cook for us, and show us how to prepare them. But I could see some other guys saying, no, etc. But I would have been the first one to eat so that I can demonstrate that this is food. See, I never died. Oh, you know how to make them. Yeah. So let's demonstrate good ideas that are innovative, and we are in that space, and within the Ashoka Fellowship we are looking for such people whom we can work with to make this idea something that we can show our people something different.
Yeah, and I like how you've ended that, because I just wanted to correct him that Harun Washira is an Ashoka Fellow and not Ashoka. So he represents an organization called Akili Group. Yes. So, and then as we continue the conversation, and because of time, I really want us to, wind up. So I'm going to ask each of us, a question, and then you can use that opportunity to also share your parting shot, so that as we finalize with each of you, you've had that opportunity to share, right? And I want this to build on a question that was asked earlier on, concerning schools and the experiences of young people within the schools, right? And we've heard that young people are undergoing some sort of stress, and Ashoka fellow Haron Washira has pointed out that parents play a critical role, right? And Debs, you agreed to that, and that is what I want to build on. And I'll start with Haron, because you mentioned this, right? So in what ways do you think, schools and education institutions can create an environment that supports and nurtures this empathy and change making among children and young people? Can you share, you've shared examples, so I really want you just to speak to that. In what ways can these schools and education institutions help or create environments that support and nurture empathy and change making?
Personally, I like to think about ecosystems where you are bringing everybody together in order to think through a solution. I'm involved in a church school environment right now, in which I asked the group there one question. It's just become July. Who is called in the community? Who is called in the community? And one lady asked me, why did you think about that in this day and age? I said, I don't know. Do you know? And they said, no, we don't know. I said, have you asked? They said, no, we haven't asked. I said, why don't you ask around? I said, but everybody, they will say they are not cold, they have blankets. I said, well, the women can go inside the houses of the suspected people who are cold and check. And everybody laughed. But do you know, in that particular group that we were dealing with, we identified 4 families that did not have a single blanket at home in that community. And that made everybody freeze, because you are now thinking, how do these people sleep? How does this person organize? Now, that word was sent around, and over the last 3 weeks, we've seen the largest mobilization in that community to collect clothes, to bring in blankets, to bring in help, to bring in cash, to support even one family of 4. I was shocked that all the kids sleep together on the floor so that they can keep warm near the fire. Now, those kids have only one dress each, and they only wear it to come to church with on Sunday. But right now, other people have surrounded them. In that community, you can actually see real empathy that has come as a result of just an awareness of what could be a problem. Now, in this particular environment, we did not engage a school, but in another school that I was involved in our work in the communities, we identified kids who literally get chased out of the school every so many weeks because they have not paid up their school fees. And we said, isn't it possible for the school to think of a way in which we can take care of these kids? And the school said that, we have the grounds, we have the places. If we can have some cows that produce a lot of milk, that milk might be able to educate the kids. So we actually got, the parents fundraised. I brought in my friends from Nairobi. At that time, I used to be in Nairobi. We bought 2 very high-yielding cows and created a scholarship fund with those cows that took 16 children in that community from Form 1 to Form 4 without paying for any fees, and every one of them went to university. Now, so I don't think the solutions are complex, but once you create the ecosystem where people can think and work together, the ideas come out from the people. They themselves become part of that. Once they own it, they begin to innovate the idea in so many different ways. And I can tell you stories all afternoon about those sorts of things that just begin to happen when people are directed in a
Any other digital platforms or tools or resources that have been effective in promoting, these skills, empathy and change making among children and young people? You've leveraged Zoom. Are there any others that we can consider and then begin to leverage as well?
Thank you very much for that question. Yeah, there are quite a number of tools that can be used when you're leveraging on technology, on collaborating, and these are the usual ones: Facebook, WhatsApp. But how do you use them? What communities are you building in those platforms? Okay. So, like for example, there's a platform by UNICEF. It's called You Report, where you can be able to use to report or tell stories. Okay. But for me, what I encourage young people is use what is in your hands. Okay, don't try to just use what is in your hands and try to leverage on that. Okay, I always say like for us, we started with Twitter. Okay, and grew from there. So if you have a WhatsApp group, okay, how can you leverage on a WhatsApp group to be able to achieve or to be empathetic, okay, or to build a movement or to make a change? I've seen WhatsApp groups that have made a huge difference. Or Facebook groups. I don't know if young people are in Facebook anymore. Okay, now we're on Threads. Okay, so so we're on Threads now. Can you look at how you can leverage on Threads to be able to leverage, okay, to be able to make a difference? I always say social media is a tool. It's a tool. It's you to know how to use it. Yeah. Okay. Like for example, you go you have a panga, isn't it? What is panga in English? Machete. Okay. You have a panga. You can choose to use that panga to plant. You can use that panga to cut a tree. You can use that panga to kill someone. Yeah. So social media is the same. Am I going to use it to plant for the future? Okay. Am I going to harm someone with it? Okay. Am I going to kill the future with it? So it's up to you to know how to use it. So you can. I say there's no difference between online and offline life. You don't have split personalities. You're the same person. Mm-hmm. It's only that you enhance that personality. You're still the same person. If you're a bad person in online, it's because in real life you're a bad person. Yes. Okay, if you're a good person, that goodness is going to be seen online. So how are you leveraging the existing platforms to show empathy? Okay, someone challenged me. Have you ever seen someone, like right now, I think, is it Njugush who is trending today? Okay, he's your friend. Okay, you know them, and they're being trolled. And you say, Eshu, just send them a WhatsApp or a text. Oh, pole sana, I've seen you're being trolled. No, don't do a DM. Go on that thread and say, Njugush is a good person. Please do not do this to them. Show that, okay? Because if Njugush was being beaten physically, would you sit and wait for Njugush to be beaten physically? So you'd go and try to separate or support, isn't it? It's the same thing as online. So that my challenge is empathy, what you have inside of you, please let it be reflected online. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, powerful, really powerful. And Angelou, I just want to bring you into that conversation because, again, we also, as Ashoka, leverage online tools. So maybe as I ask you the next question, you could also build on that if you have thoughts on the same, right? And we have Citich is a holistic learning solution, right? It's a change maker journey for the education ecosystem. And we've heard from both the panelists, Debs, and our guests who were talking about this, parenting change makers and the need for that, for us to understand how do we parent change makers, for them to master empathy or practice empathy. My question to you is, in what ways can schools and education institutions create that environment to nurture that empathy and change making, borrowing from what we have and what you're leading in the Citich with the Citich initiative?
Yeah. as I was listening to the other panelists, I think one of the things that we have to really emphasize and underscore is the importance of shifting the mindsets of teachers, administrators, and I know I've said it before, but we could have all of these tools and resources, but if the mindsets are stuck in the old way of doing things, these tools aren't going to work. So that's why it's really important to get parents, teachers, everyone to understand and to have an aha moment where they see that in order for young people to thrive in this changing world, that they need these new sets of skills. So I would say we gotta start, the foundational skill is empathy for change making, but even before that, we have to start working on mindset shift, changing the narrative of what success looks like for young people.
Can we also say that changing mindsets requires demonstrations of what is possible?
Yes.
People see what can be possible and they say, I always thought, now they're beginning to change. So we have to have many instances of demonstrated realities
and
that we would
amplifying their
like.
stories
Absolutely.
of the social change makers.
Yes.
Yeah, short and sweet. Last but not least, Debs. My question is, oh wow.
Ooh, good catch.
So from your experience, working with the network that you've been working with, what insights and challenges, what are the insights and challenges on the challenges and opportunities to redefine parenting to support children to practice empathy and, change making?
So if you allow me,
Yes.
I want to answer the question as a parent and not necessarily as Dignitas. So I think as parents, when we first start out, we think if we do a good job, we'll raise nice, obedient children who will just do what they're told. And so it becomes about a set of do's and don'ts and rights and wrongs, and that's how we raise our children. I'm now 3 children in. The oldest is about 12, so we're enjoying all the delights of teenage girls. But I think one of the things that I'm learning, I haven't figured it out fully, is that actually if I do a good job as a parent, my children will develop empathy.
Correct.
Lean on that empathy in how they relate to each other, to their teachers, to other adults. But also that they'll develop that empathy with a sense of discernment. And so they'll also learn how to discern. They'll learn to identify what's right, what's wrong, what's right and wrong for them versus others. And they'll use that empathy and that discernment to make wise decisions. And raising a child who knows how to make their own wise decisions is much more difficult than raising a child who can follow a set of rules. And I wanted to share a very brief story about my second born, who's now 10, and this story is from when she was 9. And she was in a school where girls were not allowed to wear trousers. They had to wear skirts as part of the uniform. It might not seem like a big issue, but to a 9-year-old who loves to play football, skirts are a big problem. So she started by simply just wearing trousers to school. And then she got into trouble. So the class teacher first gave her into trouble, then the form tutor gave her into trouble, then now ended up at the head teacher's. And I kind of sat back because I wanted her to figure out, how do I navigate this space? What does it mean for me to think about why I want to wear trousers and how I articulate that to my teachers and whoever? But eventually I came with her to this meeting with the head teacher. In fact, if I was her, I would have been very intimidated. It was the head teacher, the deputy head, and the head of pastoral care. Wow. And so we sat and we talked, and she talked through why she wanted to wear trousers, why it was an issue. And then I chipped in and I said, I'm very happy to encourage my child to follow the rules, but I think it's important for her to understand why the rule is there. So can you explain to her why girls have to wear skirts? So they kind of fumbled, and then eventually the deputy head said, it's just one of those rules we all follow. It's like we all drive on the left, and we all drive on the left because someone told us we all drive on the left. And I said, no. If we didn't know which side of the road to drive on, we'd all die on the roads. If my child wears trousers, no one is going to die. So it's not the same thing. So we talked a bit more, and they realized they couldn't actually justify this rule. And I said, well, if we can't justify it, how can we tell them to just blindly obey it? And so the head teacher came back, and despite the route we took to get there, what she suggested, I actually really appreciated. She said, okay, perhaps it's a rule that needs to change, but here's how we're going to go about it. We're not just going to change the rule. So they challenged my daughter, who at this point was 9, said, collect data from your peers across the whole school. Find out who wants to wear trousers, who wants to wear skirts. Ask the boys and the girls, do they think girls should be wearing trousers? Then bring that data back to the school leadership, and we'll have a conversation. And so she did that. She did a Google form. She stood up in assembly. She announced it to the whole school. Everybody has to fill this form.
That's great.
She did that. She took it to the school leadership, and they changed the rule for the whole school.
Wow.
But I really appreciated what the head teacher did, and she explained it to me afterwards. She said, we're very eager to raise young people who want to make positive change, but they have to understand how to go about making that change. And I remember at the time thinking, it's kind of this, we talk about noisemakers a lot, and it's kind of this idea of a noisemaker versus a change maker. We could have just sat there and thrown tantrums and said, my daughter is not wearing skirts, we're leaving the school, we're what? But actually, what she did was follow a pathway to actually create change, and she learned really valuable lessons along the way.
That's great.
So I think just bringing it full circle back to parenting, how do we as parents create that mindset in our child that I can see injustice, I can feel a sense of empathy as to how we address that, and then follow a series of steps, and we help them build those skills to actually then address the issue. So, yeah.
Well, thank you. I know we are out of time, but I don't think all of you got an opportunity to share your parting shot. I don't know if you included it. So I will ask this question, and please keep it as brief as possible, right? The theme for our discussion, or the objective for our discussion, was to share on building a common vision. And I want to ask you, from today's conversation, do you sense that we are building a common vision? And why? So keep it short. Do you sense that from today, or after the discussions that we've had, are we ready to start building that common vision? Have we set the right, ground for us to build a common vision, and why?
I'll go first.
Please.
I think we have done it, and the why is because collectively everybody wants to improve the growing up years of young people.
So I think, there's an exciting conversation starting to build. I think there's a common vision, and that doesn't mean we'll all do the same thing. We'll all create change in different ways, but the drive to something brighter and better in the future for all is what is shared.
Thank you.
I agree. We are all working towards change, positive change. And we all believe that it has to start with our children. So that conversation has started, yes. Yeah.
Thank you.
The answer is yes. I think we are all thinking towards what is needed in order for us not to constantly just talk about what is needed, which we've been talking about since independence. We need to really think of the structures and the mechanisms and the platforms that we all need to be part of in order for us to be able to take this forward into something that transforms society.
Well, a round of applause for the panelists. Our session has come to an end. I think I'll pass it back to Vincent as we take our photo as the last session. So I don't know where we stand. I think one here and one at the back.
Okay, good. Thank you so much, Brian. Thank you so much to all our panelists. Please, a round of applause as they leave. They creatively changed the different hats that they have, and that was really powerful because it helped put everything that we've been talking about into proper context. They say many were called, but few were chosen. Many came, a few remained to the end, because we stretched the program a bit. But this, I think I'll wait for them to finish, then we can continue. All right, thank you. As we come to the end of this baraza, I would like to wrap it up with a few comments, really just short, just within 1 minute or less than 1 minute. But before I do that, I would like to welcome one of our guests who was here. We had initially intended for them to be here earlier, but due to miscommunication that I mentioned earlier, the communication didn't get to them in good time. But it's also a very critical group that we are looking at exploring opportunities to collaborate with, and this is basically the group of Kenyans, of Africans who are in the diaspora. It's a powerful group. I don't know how much the World Bank recently showed in terms of the money that is coming into the country or into Africa from the diaspora. But that is something that Ambassador Zia will probably give us an insight around. So please welcome Ambassador Zia to just give us some quick remarks and maybe what you've picked in terms of the opportunities to support and to work closely with you as we transform this growing up and education experience for children and young people. We are not talking about just young people in Kenya or in Africa. We're thinking this has to happen. So when we have this transformed, our young people in the diaspora, we want them to come and, there's no culture shock. They get to meet other children who have the kind of confidence and sense of freedom to change this world.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Vincent, for this opportunity. I will take only 3 of your minutes because I know even when one is has extra capacity to listen, but having sat for all those long hours, I don't wish to bore you so much. Thank you so much, Angelo and team, Vincent, and the rest. I am from the Kenya Diaspora Alliance, and I'm happy to have met my senior here, Engineer Charles Kalomba, whom we revere so much in our diaspora circles, because sitting with him for just 5 minutes, you will have a wider knowledge of how to go about your life with ease without getting any hardships. In fact, he can make you sell ice cream in Iceland. Not to overemphasize on that one. So I've said I will take only 3 minutes and I will do exactly that. My name is Ambassador Zia Beja. I'm the head of Secretariat, Kenya Diaspora Alliance, and to a larger extent, the African Diaspora Alliance, whose headquarters are in Nairobi. So we thank you, Angelo. I believe you met with the rest of our team in Abuja during the African Diaspora Symposium, or your colleagues must have met with some of our colleagues. So mine will be just 4 items, which will very much leverage on, or which I will predicate my presentation. and it's not that long. So our areas of interest are: one, capacity building of change makers, which has been overemphasized in all the presentations. And number two, we'll be leveraging on mentorship. And here, mentorship, we are talking of knowledge transfer. Knowledge transfer, we have so many people in the diaspora out there who only need an opportunity. We tell them there is this and this presentation, and they can make time to come and do exactly that. And this one cuts through all the knowledge areas from academia, social enterprise, investment, and all that. And I will answer the last questions about diaspora remittances. So, but this one is from the Kenya Diaspora Alliance and to some extent the African Diaspora Alliance. So one is capacity building of change makers, and number two, mentorship, which we can leverage on knowledge transfer. And we are not short of knowledgeable people who can transfer that knowledge to the young ones from the universities, tertiary institutions, secondary schools, and even to the small circles. Because nowadays, even if it's borders, they have circles. If it is school children, they can even come up with groups like the 4K clubs formation. And when Engineer Kalomba was trying to explain something here, he talked about that production line of a banana, or of bananas. We are in collaboration with one speculate that about 10 billion US dollars come in, but because that is the money that is channeled through the non-financial institutions or through the non-fintech and all that. What of the monies that come in briefcase to households? And something that came out of a survey done by the Central Bank of Kenya is that the 4.5 billion, take it that it is 100%, isn't it? Only 25% go to positive investment. The 75% goes to waste. Like if my brother in the US brings me like say 3,000 US dollars, maybe after another 3 months, 300 US dollars. That is about 450,000 Kenya shillings. I'm not working. Maybe I come to USIU or to any other learning institution, and after every 3 months, I've got about of 450 Kenya shillings. So this is money for clubbing, if I may use the terminologies. So without tearing you up, 70% of the money that comes just goes to waste, domestic use, paying of dowries, and I know you Africans are good at paying dowries and divorcing, always going to with the new, in fact they have got new, let me teach you a bit of Kenyan terminologies. When and let me use my colleague Washira, because I think we're in the same age group, but at that age, they prefer going for, there is a terminology, akachungwa. Akachungwa is a beautiful lady whom mostly stays somewhere at a rented place, and all the monies go there. So 75% of the remittances go to useless ventures, which we have now planned to streamline some of the usage thereof. And part of it is to come up with regulated institutions, like if it is real estate, is that real estate regulated? If it is an investment company, is it regulated by NSC, Central Bank, or Capital Markets Authority, and on and on and on. If you want to invest in the health services, is it regulated by the necessary bodies? So with that, let me end there, and sorry for taking most of your time, but you are welcome to the Kenya Diaspora Alliance, and there we are working wonders. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ambassador Zia Beja. So when you say, if you are interested in joining diaspora, we usually say in Kenya, in Nairobi, I think it environs that Rongai is diaspora. So we're not referring to those people from Rongai, Kiambu. That's not what we mean. We mean the real diaspora. But thank you so much, and pass our regards. All this started from a conversation we had with Dr. Shemo Chodo. I think, Angelo, you're part of that, Oh, yeah. So it all started then, and I think this is an indication of that commitment, which is here to, the point is that for all the conversations that we've been having, there's this story that is told of a young man who was, taken to a forest by his father, and he was asked to cut a tree. And what his dad told him was, use all your strength to cut this tree. And he tried throughout, almost towards the evening, and he was doing it by himself. Then towards the end, his dad asked him, are you sure you're using all your strength? Then it occurred to him that he was not using all his strength, because he was not tapping into the strength of his dad. So he struggled with this huge tree the entire day. So what I'm saying is that for every innovation that we are running at individual level, at an institutional level, all the partnership, the institutions that we've, the relationship, the connection that we have made here should make it much more easier for us to accelerate the change that we want to see. And the change that we want to see here for this conversation is to redefine growing up and education experience for children and young people. And this is important. We all have those moments when we were children when something happened that triggered this kind of interest that makes this make sense, that makes it possible for us to say, yes, indeed, we need to rethink the way parenting is done, rethink the way education is being done. And I know we all have stories around that. We all have those moments that we thought, if we're reflecting back, you can say, that was not the way it was supposed to be. And I think for us, I think it's a unique crisis, as we say. When you look at the education system, yes, it is the same education system globally, by and large, which was meant to produce factory workers. So people were supposed to do repetitive work. You learn this, and that is what you need to repeat over and over and over again. It was basically for the Industrial Revolution time. It never changed. So whether you are in whatever field, it is basically for factory working, where you just repeat what you're supposed to be doing. And that has completely changed. And for us on the continent, it's even double jeopardy, because it's not just for factory workers, but subservient factory workers, because then there was a colonial layer into it, and that has also continued over so many years now. And when you talk about graduates and people say, oh, these graduates are half-baked or half-cooked or half-what, it is essentially just one ingredient that is missing: confidence and sense of freedom that you can change the world. That's all that is missing. And if you look at the Changemakers skills, that is what that is supposed to help us to achieve. But it's not going to be just in the education space alone. It's not just going to be parents, because then if there is a misalignment in that entire value chain, then the end product, which then is us, our children, the children that we know, still does not make sense. So we have to align together. And like Deborah said, everyone will be on their own journey trying to create this change. But the most important thing is that if we can synergize and come together and find those points of where we can actually change the system, whether it's driving towards policy for those who want to work on the policy change, whether it's in mindset shift, whether it's in changing the market dynamics, and that is something all the corporates that are here would want to hear. That's why they're saying we need to align. We need to make it so sustained, because I think the kind of change that we are anticipating will only happen if we sustain this effort. Will only happen if we are all on the same page at every given point in time. And with those few remarks, I know my colleague Brian was to give us next step, but can we do that via email probably? Yeah, so that then we can save time, because it's been a long day. With those few remarks, I want to just reiterate, thank you so much for staying the whole course, and thank you so much also for sharing, because this enriches everything that we are doing. Part of it also validates what we've been thinking as Ashoka, because the thing is that this is not just coming from a theoretical point of view. It's from the 40 plus years of work that we are doing, that we've been doing, and especially our strategy in terms of creating a new space and giving a new space a meaning and the definition and terminologies. We did it with social entrepreneurship. It's now the norm. Universities are teaching about social entrepreneurship. Young people are emerging saying they're social entrepreneurs. We can also apply the same principles and work together with everyone to make sure that we build a world where everyone is a change maker. But with your request, with your permission, please, I'm requesting, I don't want to be that young man who spent the entire day in the forest trying to use his strength instead of all the strength that he had. The engineer has been talking about Juakali and Juakali and Juakali. I just want to give you 30 seconds, probably, if it will be possible, because there must be something that is starting you with the Juakali, and I think we don't want to lose that as we live, as we think of this, because yes, we're talking about education, and many vocational training centers will have graduates who get into Juakali. So maybe if you can just share quickly, what is this that is keeping your spirit unsettled? Just 30 seconds, please, of 1 minute at most.
Can you start with what Juakali is?
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much. In fact, that's an honor, because we were not part of the program. But my brother has spoken big things. And of course, this is a Juakali man. He's very passionate about Juakali things. Juakali is a sector that brings together according to Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, which also was one of the consultants, about close to 18 million people in this country. And I like the way Ashoka fellow said in the morning that 80% close to is the job that is being created from the sector. But Juakali, how did it come about? Juakali is all about that young boy who does not obey the father and does not obey the mother. The chief comes to support them, to pull him out to a sector for him to go and get disciplined and learn. And that's where we got our members. So majorly, we are illiterate, but we carry skill. And that skill, where does it come from? Those who care would refer to the book, second book of Moses, called Exodus, chapter 31. From verse 1 to verse 10, if you can write it down, go and read it. All the skills that God gave, that Juakali was supposed to do, and yet they came from the tribe of Judah. That is why Juakali is sustainable. From the book of Exodus chapter 31, from verse 1 to verse 10, God gave it to Moses for the Juakali guys to handle it. But there is a unique thing that happened, that he gave the Spirit of God, number 1. Then he gave knowledge, number 2. Then he gave understanding, number 3. Then he gave skill, number 4. Then he gave the one that bonds them together, number 5. And you look at number 5, then you'll see what I'm saying. Because Jesus is number 5, 5 letters. So you'll see where Juakali comes from. And that why is it sustainable? And Juakali is the one that has been standing on this economy. So when you talk about from creation, first book, second book, Juakali came in. But in 1988, the President of this Republic, Honorable Excellency Moi, he ordered Saitoti to issue a legal notice to recognize the Juakali sector through a legal notice number 412. And since then, the Juakali became the forerunners of the Vision 2020, which is the vision of President Moi, who died in 2020. And the Vision 2030 came about. And President Kibaki identified some of us. I became an advisor to him. We carried Vision 2020 concept into Vision 2030, and we became the drivers of the economic pillar of the Vision 2030. And I think that's why we are not performing very well as a country, because the Vision 2030 economic pillar is growing downwards. The political pillar is growing upwards, and the social pillar diminished. So the house is not in order. So I just wanted to put things in order, that this is a country where people eat meat, export hides and skins, and import shoes and bags. A country where... Oh, I stop. Yes. Okay.
Thank you. Engineer is about to open a totally new debate. But you see, the beauty, and that, I mean, that's really good, you know, to even contextualize within the conversation that we've been having, just where you left it. Because change making will then cut across, I mean, will cut across all the pillars. It's debatable whether the economic pillar is going up or down, but then we know if we get change makers, that should be sorted. There's a debate whether the social pillar, and a lot of conversation here focus on education, which is a social pillar, also I think very much needed. And if we are going to support the other pillars, there's also debate in terms of the political pillar. Where are we on that? And again, you'll see we need change makers, because what is disrupting political pillar is essentially the whole notion of consolidation of power. Some people must have power, some people have power, some people don't have power. It is just the thinking around collaborative leadership, how do, you know, and all that speaks into political pillar. So my point is, we need a world where everyone is a change maker. Then all those pillars will drive concurrently. Because when we have change makers within, making those kind of decisions, policy decisions, you know, driving systems change, then the pillars will all rise at the same time, or maybe, you know, rise, and that is what we need. I would like us to stop from where we started, so I'd like to call my colleague, Angelo. Angelo, but then Abby first. And, okay. Yeah. I would like to ask Abby to come. But as Abby makes her way, because it is always good to give due where it is due. So I'd like to recognize Ashoka East Africa team. Please, may you just rise up for just from the seat. Thank you. So that's the part of the team. Some of them were not able to be here. And also especially Abigail, for you saw the emails probably late in the night and all conversation. If there is any piece here that didn't work out, we'll say thank you so much for your leadership. But please give it up, a round of applause for Abby. Let's keep this conversation going. There was a point where we said this is just starting, but I think this has been ongoing for so many years. In the next 15 to 20 years, maybe around 70 to 80% of the world population will be change makers. So the question is, where do we want to place ourselves in building this world where everyone is a change maker? And also, what role do we want to play in this movement that we are currently, building? Because definitely, from all the conversation, the panelists who are here, and everyone who was here, there is all indications that we have the right people in the room, and together we can make this happen. Thank you. Yeah, Jokali.
The meaning is not what is known by the people.
Yeah.
If Jokali means Jua means no.
Yeah.
Knowledge. Kali means shout.
Yeah. It's not the hot sun. It just, it was killing two birds with one stone. Most of the time they operate within these open spaces, but it was Ujuaji Kali. Then it became Jua Kali. Thank you.
Thank you, Vincent. I don't really have much to say except thank you so much for sticking with us, for being here today. As I said in the morning, you could have been in many other places, but you chose to be here. So thank you again. We'll surely follow up. We've had great conversations from our panelists, from the audience, and there's a lot to follow up on. So look forward to an email, to a report from us. But in the meantime, thank you and travel safely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I say it without being up there? Yes. I just wanted to say, Kwaheri, I will see you again. I'm very excited. I've been really just overwhelmed with excitement and joy and hope because you all are already doing the work. You are already putting it in, and so I'm going off to Tanzania tomorrow, then back to Nigeria to tell everybody about what I witnessed here and what this man is leading with his team over there. And I will see you soon. Okay? Thank you.